We're back.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about what I chose for the name for the podcast. So what do you think of the skill tree?
I like it.
There was this TV show I used to watch when I was little called Fred Penner's Place. And the intro is like a guy going through the woods and through bushes, and he goes through like a log and ends up in like a secret little clearing in the woods.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
So that's what I think of us gathering around under the skill tree. I sent you a little like AI image that I played around with that was trying to convey the vibe that I'm going for.
It immediately invoked the vibe that I've been getting a lot lately with, did you ever watch The Simpsons? The lemon tree episode where Grandpa Simpson's sitting under the lemon tree talking about how things were in the past. That's like us
That's
right
us
now
now.
talking about pre-AI days.
I mean, I learned assembly, so it's moved a while since there.
I am not that old.
I didn't have to learn it like for fun. I did computer engineering in college, and that was part of the, just to know what it was.
When did you graduate college?
2004. Yeah, I graduated high school in the year 2000. That's the easy way to
Got it.
establish where I am.
I was 05 for high school and 08 for college.
Oh, you did great in college.
I just took summer classes and went as fast as I could.
I almost did a little bit early, but I went to a liberal and applied arts college, so I took just an incredible amount of credits that I look back on it, and I'm like, that's probably dumb to do like a liberal arts degree and an engineering degree at the same time, but I appreciate that I did it. It was a lot.
Yeah. Well, it made you who you are now.
Yeah.
You're here now, so it's
Yep.
all good.
I exist, yes. I think one of the fun ideas someone proposed for the podcast was skill issue, which I did like too, and I was just trying to figure out how to say it in a way that was either conveyed the bit or sounded catchy, and I just couldn't. Skills issue sounds a little bit better, but then it's not quite the same joke. So I don't know. I like the skill tree. The skill tree it makes me happy when I say
do
it.
too.
So
And that's kind of playing on the way that you're supposed to make skills, kind of, right? Like you have a tree of paths that you can take and load in what you need based on that.
I got in touch with you after I had this idea, which was just a weird random idea we were both getting into skills at the same time, which is probably right after they announced that it was this format that they were pursuing. And yeah, I was learning about it, and I was just like, it seems like it's a really good platform, not just for learning about the format, but the way that people can use it is so broad and so interesting that I really think it can be like a great way to talk about a lot of different things.
For sure. Do you know what the first skill was that you made after learning about them?
I do not remember, no. I'd been using Cursor for a while, and I've been doing a lot of rules. And so a lot of what I needed was already covered by that. So I probably just merged a couple of those over. I started using it for documentation initially. Just the different stuff that I was using would start releasing skills, and I would move those over.
I was at an onsite in San Francisco when skills dropped. And I was actually supposed to give a little AI hour-long talk or workshop type thing just internally. That morning I woke up and saw skills, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. And it actually took me a lot longer than I should probably admit to understand like how this markdown file is different from another markdown file. I was just like, they're all markdown files. What does this even do? But the one that really opened my eyes to it, I think, was they had some image generation example, I think, that it shipped with, and that was cool. Or it would like animate them. The first one that I made was a Claude skill, which was supposed to be like a meta way to improve your skills with Claude. And it would analyze your, like the JSON-L files that Claude makes and figure out how you talk to it and understand the things that you do to it. And then it would go do a code search on GitHub for skill.md files that would match based on the names, like what you might be doing. And it would suggest them in there. Plus it would suggest like some other things about your workflow. Oh, your Claude.md is too big. You seem to be doing this a lot. Maybe you should package that up in this way. Oh, and it would also like analyze how many times it had to ask you for permission on things. And it would be like, oh, you sure use find tool a lot. You should maybe add that to your allow list so you don't get bothered by it so much.
Yeah, this is before they had skill registries.
Yes. Yeah.
Back in the day.
Literally day one, like 4 hours later, after I woke up, I was given this talk.
Nice. I was thinking we could talk about kind of a couple of the things that we've done with it since. I want to talk about your ideation skill because I feel like that's gotten the most momentum. It seems like you work on it a lot. Every time I use it, it seems like it's slightly different.
I have a pull request out now.
I think the story for it is probably pretty fun too, about how that all started.
I was at NebraskaJS, which is a meetup in Nebraska that I have helped run since 2012. And it's basically, we talk about AI now.
Yeah, it's weird to talk about the nuances of programming languages now, isn't it?
It's so weird. Total tangent, but like I was reading the TypeScript 6 beta notes, like what's coming in TypeScript 6 and like all the new features. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm sure Claude's going to enjoy that syntax. Like, I don't care anymore. Such a weird thing to say.
I don't know. Like, I opened up one of the type files that whatever LLM I was using had generated. And I was like, I feel like you could do a little bit better here.
Yeah.
So, some of that still, I think it was Matt Pocock. He's talking about how he thinks of things in terms of modules and interfaces. And he spends time on modules and interfaces and then worries a little bit less about the inner workings. And so I feel like TypeScript's a really good one of those interfaces where you can spend a little bit of extra time. You can be indulgent a little bit, perhaps, with your types.
Yeah, and I'm being a little silly in that I look at code all day, but I do feel the importance of it waning a bit. Just like the minutia of every line of code.
It's the little like indulgent snack that you can have while you're using your LLM. You can be like, I'm gonna take a peek at what types it generated, and I'm gonna use satisfies.
I just added Oxlint to a project. I wanted to play with like Oxlint and Ox format, and it had some issues. And I was like, I'm gonna go manually fix these. I'm gonna contribute. And I was doing that while it was running, like Claude was running something else, but I contributed. It felt good.
That's the part we play.
Yeah. The skill, it came about at NebraskaJS. We were kind of doing it was like a show your workflow type thing. Like, how are you using AI? Show that off. And people came and showed off what they were doing. And there was one person who showed off like a thing that they were building that was really interesting. It was like a web app, but it was LLM backed, and it would ask you questions about the project that you were working on. So you would kind of describe what you were doing, and then it would ask you questions until it got a better understanding of what you actually wanted and kind of pulled that information out of you, which I'm like a huge fan of. I just immediately started doing that with LLMs the first time I got them. I'm like, like LinkedIn recommendations was the first thing. It was like, I could have ChatGPT generate this recommendation, but that doesn't seem like honest or it's going to be like unique to you. So instead, like ChatGPT, ask me questions about that person and I'll give you answers, and then you can help me to formulate that. But you're like extracting the information out of me rather than just like making something up. And I've been like so hooked on Claude since it first showed up in the terminal, because that's where I live. And I just loved it. And so I'm like, I wonder if I could make this into a skill and like use it. And while they were talking, I just made it into a skill. And it's called Ideation because at the time also I was really getting into dictation and using WhisperFlow for everything, which I still do. But I really wanted a way for me to just brain dump. I just want to talk for as long as WhisperFlow will let me, and then have it just brain dump everything in there. And that's just my raw everything. I don't want to formulate it. I want to jump back and forth between things, and I want it to help me to make sense of that chaos that's in my brain. So I thought like, Ideation would be a good name for that, because I'm just brain dumping to you, and then you formulate that and you ask me questions to clarify things. It continuously asks you questions until it meets a specific criteria, and that there's like 5 different things that it scores, and they each are worth 20 points, and the points have to add up to 95 or greater. If it's any less than that, then it just keeps adding questions to ask you to refine that. And it has a whole rubric in it about what makes for good criteria for each of these things and all of that. Once it gets that, it builds a contract. The contract is like something that a markdown file that you can read through and understand from like a 10,000 foot view what we're building, what's in scope, what's out of scope.
It isn't super verbose, which is nice. Like it's,
yes.
You look at it and you're like, oh, I can read this.
Yeah, it takes a few minutes to read. You can skim it, honestly. And I do that mostly, like jump to different sections. And it's always like the same sections. Once you approve that contract, and you can ask it questions once it's built and change things from there. But once you approve it, then it starts generating specs. And you can have it generate PRDs too, product requirement docs, if you want. And that's like if you need buy-in from like other stakeholders and you want to generate those to like tell the full story. Most of the time I'm just working on things that I know I want to do, so I skip those. And I added an option to let you skip that now too.
PRDs are also really nice interfaces for other tools, Taskmaster and stuff like that are designed to start from a PRD. Because I feel like the contract is that like agreement that you're making with the ideation system. And that's where you really can make a lot of corrections. And then from there, the spec is very prescriptive.
Yes.
And a PRD gives you a little bit more flexibility to have something else implement it.
Yeah. And it kind of like follows that, like, as a user, I want to do this. And it kind of tells those like user stories in there.
The other thing I like about the way that the contract stage works is that it'll be like, do you need to make any changes? And you're like, yeah, I need to make some changes. And then it's like, is it this that you want to change?
Yeah.
And then a lot of times it's right. Like it sent you a contract and it kind of knows the parts where it might be a little not on the mark, which is fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good about that, honestly. I wish I could take credit for that, but that's all Claude, just like fill it in the blanks. But the specs are a little bit more in the weeds. They oftentimes like tell exactly what files to change, what to change the code to. Still from like, it's not like a 0-foot level. It's probably from like a 100-foot level, like what you should do. And it goes from there. And then it generates all of those, and it tries to break them up in a couple of different ways. First off, this was generated in the days before the Opus 1 million context window. And so it was like, break this up into things that we can do in a single fill of the context. And then we can clear the context and start over with phase 2 and 3 and so on. And so it breaks it up by that, but it also tries to identify what things could be done in parallel and breaks up specs based on that. And this is specifically to support the agent teams mode that you can turn on. It's a beta feature in Claude right now, and it'll just spin up a bunch of agents that can all talk to each other, and they have like a manager that manages them all. And you can interact with that manager and like grant permissions to the other agents in the team, and they can go do things and then they'll die. And so it tries to break it up like that. And then it gives you like a final prompt of like what to do next once those are all generated. And it really comes down to a command, which I just changed into a skill because commands are now deprecated, but it's called execute spec. And at that point, this is where you can completely clear your context. You can start a new Claude session, do whatever you need to do, and it will basically reload what it needs based on the specs and the contract and the PRD if you have that as well. But for each one, so you can just say like execute spec and then point it at phase 1. And it'll start from there and go. And this is where I have some changes that are in there now. But right now it kicks off, and before it starts implementing, it actually kicks off a Scout subagent. And the Scout's job is to do nothing but read the code and deliver up-to-date information to the main Claude agent to tell it exactly how to do things. So this is where it's really going to dig in from like, I'm trying to do this task. I'm going to go dig in and make sure I read the code and understand it. It's just forcing it to get into that mindset. Then it's going to understand the code. It'll start making the changes. And it starts going through a loop. While it's going through that, it kicks off another subagent that's a reviewer, and it's just looking at the diffs and kind of doing like a diff level review of it as it's going. The main like Claude agent is also doing like understanding and reviewing it. It has its own concept of feedback loops that are built into the spec. So it understands like, this is the task I need to do. How can I understand that I did that correctly? And a lot of times that's like create a unit test and do like the red, green refactor thing. That can be it. It could also be like, oh, I need to do special logging and then execute a bash script or execute the script, and then it'll log out some specific things and I can see, yes, it's actually doing what it does. So it's like an on the spot check that it can do. And it'll do that plus the reviewer. And if it runs into any issues, it sends it back and does like another loop, another pass on that piece of the spec to get it going. And it'll only do that 3 times. Or if it runs into an issue where it can't continue because it doesn't actually know, it's like confused on something, then it will stop and go over to a human. And this is all like recent changes, like this week changes that I've made, because I want it to run for as long as possible without interrupting me and asking me questions. Yep. And it's working pretty well so far.
Nice.
But then it gets to the end and it will then write out a summary of what changes it made, where the state's at, and whether it's ready to continue to the next phase from there. It also kind of does a little mini review there of like, based on the things that we actually did we stick to the plan, or do the subsequent phases need modification at all to catch up to where they're at? And so then there, I usually commit and then clear the context and then start phase 2, execute spec on phase 2 or phase 3. Or what it does also is if there's anything that can be done in parallel with the agent teams, it actually puts all of this information into the contract. So you can keep the contract up in your editor, and it will say like, after you've run phase 2, here is a prompt that then you pass in. And that prompt will be like, phase 1 is now complete. Phases 2 through 8 can all be done in parallel. You'll kick off these 4 agents that'll each do 2 things. There's this file, that they all need to touch. They need to ask permission and do it in single file order. Never have 2 people order or 2 agents order touching it at once. And then they do all of that communication, and it can just run, for 10, 15, 20 minutes and do all of the next 8 phases or whatever, and then get to the end and just speeds up the workflow by a lot.
And then you do have some like progressive disclosure in it as well, right? You kind of have things split up a little bit in terms of your different files that you're using.
Yeah, for sure. It's got things like the rubric for what it means to be successful, what it means to understand what I'm asking for, what it means to understand how to do the things that I'm asking for, and things like that. And then it will also load in, like, it'll progressively disclose like the templates for what a contract looks like, what a spec looks like, what a PRD looks like. If you skip the PRDs, it just never loads that into context, things like that.
Well, that also makes me think that you could, if you wanted to, say like, well, don't load the rubric from the file. I'm going to create my own rubric that I want you to use. I've been messing with it, and I pretty much tell it, I actually want you to get to 99%. And it's like, okay. Nice. So, I mean, I haven't had any problems telling it, like, even though, because it's not like a system level prompt. It's kind of it's loading the skill and doing what it's supposed to. So yeah, I've had a lot of luck with just saying like, don't actually load this file. So that's another little kind of perk of that whole infrastructure as well, is being able to do something like that.
Yeah, and it's really great. I do these in a bunch of work trees, and I just have them going simultaneously, and then I just kind of hop back and forth between them, and it's allowing me to really parallelize my work and get a lot done. And I also just end up sharing a lot of, like, I go search for news articles on new Claude things. There's like a new Claude thing every single day, and then just kick off discussions. That's like my kryptonite right now, is like, I've got like 5 different agents running at a time, 5, 6 agents. And then while they're all working, I get to a spot where I'm like, okay, let me go check the internet. And then the classic.
You gotta be learning.
Yeah.
I think the one skill I've been messing with recently is I've been trying to load stuff into context as much as possible for things that are not very well handled by the different LLMs. Because as good as they are, if you're not writing like boilerplate React, you still have to hold its hand a little bit. And I think that'll always be true. I don't see someone creating like 10 trillion parameter models that can like have every single little nitpicky detail of programming. And so I like using DeepWiki a lot to kind of go through docs. They have completely free search of any GitHub repository, public or private, which you can add your own little authentication token. So you can query it with their MCP tool, and then you can even do like a deep research query, which is like pretty involved. It runs for several minutes. But just the documentation they create from the repositories is pretty good. And so I created a little script that it uses 2 of their MCP tools. One, which is it lists the structure of the wiki document that it creates, and then you can actually download the entirety of the wiki page in Markdown as well. And so there's actually like a script that goes through and it finds the different Markdown sections that correspond to the hierarchy from that call, and then actually splits them up into reference files. And then when it's done, it passes that structure and all the file names back to the LLM and says, use this for the reference section of the skill, but then also find the most relevant documents and from those extract the main skill text for the top of the document. So like, give me like what would be in the overview of this skill file based on everything you've downloaded. And so then it creates a skill.md file based on the project, and it lists every reference file. And then I just have like an automatic progressive disclosure based on a structure that they've already created. I need to publish it. Like I've just been messing around with it locally, but just having an excuse to write a script has been really fun. Because I'm like, skills don't have a lot of scripts most of the time. Like a lot of the time I use just for context. So that was really fun.
Yeah, that's fascinating. But I haven't used DeepWiki yet. This is like it really works well.
I think it's great. I think the wiki that it puts together is great. And then if you have a private repository, you can edit the structural document that says like, well, these are going to be the pages and here's how they're nested. And then you can even give it additional context and say, well, you missed the nuance of how you explained this page. And then you can run it again and it'll rebuild the wiki based on the overview you gave it. I think if you're the repository owner, it has like a .devon file that you can put like a JSON document in that has this information in it. And so like as the project owner, you can put that document in that explains when, so it's run by Devon and they just recreate the wiki based on your instructions.
Fascinating. I'm confused though, because I thought that this was a Google project, but it's a Devon, a Cognition project.
Well, I think there's like a Google-ish version of it.
Yeah.
I just like that it's completely free.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a loss leader, I guess. But like you can just go to the website anytime and just do like a deep research question on the code base and it'll go crazy and figure out a lot of what you're asking.
Okay, nice. And there is a MCP for it.
Yeah, the skill I have, you have to have the MCP for it to work. I couldn't actually find a way on the site to download like the full Markdown content, but the MCP just gives you the full Markdown content, so... I have a little like deep researcher sub-agent that I use that, depending on what I ask, will use like Context 7 and Perplexity and DeepWiki. Most of the problems I run into, even if I give it all the context in the world, it still can't figure it out. Because a lot of the problems I deal with are some like weird race condition where you have to do this, that, this, then this, and this. And I imagine if you gave it a sandbox and let it iterate on a bunch of tests and bad ideas, it might eventually figure it out. But right now I'm still smarter than the LLM when it comes to that stuff, luckily.
That reminds me of an article I saw from the AMP people. AMP is another one of these coding agents, but it was called Feedback Loopable. And it's talking all about that, where like it'd be effectively that, where you give it a sandbox and let it try and fail over and over and over until it identifies the pattern, and then it can really go from there. I've been obsessed with that concept ever since reading that article.
I think as costs come down, that's definitely going to be an interesting approach to dealing with stuff. It's just, things are prohibitively expensive right now to do that. Someday, I mean, I've been messing around with some of the open source models. Like, I think GLM5 is pretty amazing. I went to NebraskaJS for your last meeting and we were talking there. I've been trying to run the ideation script with these models, and Kimi K2 is probably the next most capable model, and it struggles. It does good, but it's like it doesn't load the rubric, right? It's stuff like that where it's like you should be able to do that, I think. But then like GLM5 has really been capable. It's been really doing a good job of following pretty complicated instructions. We'll see how things go. Like, it's exciting to think about some of the things it'll be able to do when model costs come down.
Do you think model costs will come down?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there'll always be a frontier model that is better, but you keep seeing these open source models that are just getting more and more capable for quarter of the price a lot of the time.
So help me understand that then. How are you running it? You're not running it locally.
I've been using Master Code.
Okay.
Has been the most successful harness for that. There's another setup I like a lot called Agent Zero, which I think is Agent Zero is fascinating for a lot of different reasons. Like, I would love to have the creator on sometime. In one of his recent episodes, he kind of is like, I invented skills. He had his own kind of variation of it, but he had packaged up a system of prompts and command line utilities and everything quite a while ago. He's a fun tinkerer to watch just to see how he's solving some of these problems. He has a whole, like, Master released their observational memory system, which is fascinating, but he had done something similar where he kind of situationally compresses parts of the discussion as it goes on longer and longer. So those have been like, I think Master Code is probably the best harness right now, and that's only like a couple of weeks old at this point. It's actually really tweakable, their setup, because it really is just a bunch of agents under the hood. And so you can just mess with the agents and give them different instructions and different tools and stuff like that. Yeah. It's
built on pi.dev, which I think is the same thing
that's the TUI or whatever. Yeah, it's fun watching some of the stuff emerge. I think Master Code's probably the best playground to use these different models right now. I think it does a better job of dealing with loading skills and talking to MCP servers and stuff like that, which makes sense. I mean, that's what their tooling is for.
That's interesting. So you're using those, are you using that as like, what would you call it? Your agent throughout the day, like Master Code?
No, I use Cursor throughout the day.
Okay.
Between the latest Google, the latest Anthropic, and the latest OpenAI models, they've crossed the threshold of writing good code.
Yes.
But it's fun to mess around with the other ones for like code splunking and especially stuff that I think will consume a lot of tokens, giving it like deep research tasks that I haven't been able to get other tools to do a good job with. I'll create a fun little environment and script and prompt for it to churn on a code base or whatever issue I'm dealing with. I don't use it much to write code is what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. Somebody at my work was talking about, they're playing with pi.dev directly, and they triggered me because they said that to them Claude Code is like VS Code and Pi is like NeoVim, and I'm like, oh, I gotta try this. It's like more closer to the metal. Like, you gotta really.
It's your catnip.
Yeah. And I'm just a tinkerer. I love like messing with everything, and I feel like Claude Code is pretty tinkerable through like skills and things like that. But I think you can use all of that anywhere pretty much. So yeah, there's going to be some time when I have time, probably this weekend, to dig into Pi and see what I can do, see what it's about, and see how extensible it is and how willing I am to extend it.
I think the last thing I wanted to talk about is kind of what our plan is for the podcast moving forward.
Yeah, sounds good. What is our plan?
What I really want to do is have fun names for all of our segments. That is number one most important for me. I want our opening to be called Front Matter. First thing we talk about.
Love it. Yeah.
gonna have context poisoning at some point. I want to have a lot of guests. That's one of the reasons that I thought this was so fascinating, is that we both have gotten to know a lot of different people in tech over the years. We've both attended a lot of conferences and interviewed a lot of people at conferences. And yeah, I think there's just so many people who have so many fascinating things to say. There's a lot of people that are releasing skills very recently that I think would be great just to have a platform for them to talk about them. When we met up, we talked about Convex releasing their skills. And then I saw LangChain released skills today. There's a lot of new stuff coming out all the time where people are starting to think more about how to inform LLMs about their projects. But I also want to get people in completely different fields that are using skills in different ways to do weird stuff. Yeah, I would love to have writers and researchers and stuff like that all kind of rely on creating their own workflows to do stuff.
For sure. Yeah, branching out from just software dev, it would be fascinating to see how these tools are being picked up and used and customized.
Yeah, and I mean, also, if we can look, having more people that are like working on the different skill harnesses would be interesting as well. How they're ingesting them and what sort of loops they're using and stuff like that, I think is really interesting as well. Being able to reliably trigger skills seems like it's going to be a huge deal. Especially you see a lot of people moving away from even like being able to directly call them. Right? They're kind of relying entirely on prompt-driven skill loading. I created the email address podcast at skilltree.fm. And so I would love to hear feedback about the show and corrections and guest ideas and all that stuff as well. So,
yeah. And about your skills. I want to try them.
Yeah. We should talk about the website that I'm going to be trying to put together as well. So the idea for that, I don't know how well it's going to work out, but the idea is that if you go to skilltree.fm right now, it redirects to the GitHub skill, or the skill on GitHub. And the idea with that is that all of the guest profiles, all of the topics, all of the episode metadata and summaries will be there in Markdown files with front matter and transcripts as well. We'll even have instructions for like you and me for workflows for how we process the episodes, and probably have a little build script locally for outputting like the assembled index files, like for every episode that a certain topic's mentioned on. And then if someone installs the skill, we're going to kind of try to sneakily set it up to where if they're talking about a certain topic, it will, hopefully the skill MD file is going to be pretty small, but it will check the different topics we've talked about and then search the transcript and be like, they talked about this on this episode. Do you want to listen to it? And kind of inject a little link into the chat transcript. It's trying to be like a skill for the podcast itself about skills.
That is so clever.
Yeah. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I'm really going to try hard to make it work.
I feel like it could.
I mean, if nothing else, just having all the metadata in like a consumable format should be fun for us, if nothing else.
Yeah. Just natively ask questions about the podcast or about any of the skills that we talk about.
Yeah.
And it'll just work. That's amazing. Love it. In a future episode, I want to talk about generating skills. Auto-generating skills. I need skills. I don't want to write them. How do I generate them? How do I make sure that they are good? So evaluating them, and how do I prevent them from just being randomly rewritten every time I want to regenerate? Like only generate on changes, things like that.
Have you looked at Tessel's repository? Because I think they have an eval system.
They do.
That you can like include evals with your skill. And then they run tests on it.
I actually wrote my own framework for evaluating skills.
And I'm a DSPy fan, so that's always been my go-to eval framework.
Very cool. Yeah. I'll have to talk about all of that because I blindly just built one without knowing what I was doing, and it seems to work pretty well. And it's validated now that I'm doing things correctly. When I say I built one, I mean I grew one with Claude.
Tessel has their own podcast, and so like that's a really good resource. I don't know if they have a good episode on like the nitty gritty of their evals. The one I listened to was just generalizing the repository that they're putting together. But they might have done something more interesting since.
Yeah, interesting. I'll have to check it out.
But if not, maybe we can get them to come explain it here.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I would love to know. I would love to have a deep dive into evaluating skills. Like, I think that's really fascinating. Evals are so hard, though. Like, I did a talk on DSPy optimization recently, and the way that I would explain evaluation is that you almost need to have 2 presentations, one on evaluations as a concept and one on writing good metrics. Because they're such vastly different skills to where even if you're like, I need to test this, this, and this, we'll come up with a good score. How are you going to come up with one that's granular enough that you know that you're making progress? And that's really tough. It's definitely an art.